Marius is back this week to share his awesome perspective with us as we do a deep dive into goal setting. Goal setting looks so different for everyone, and it's actually not something I love to do with
Yeah.
athletes, which might be a little weird to say. I don't really like to sit down and talk about what are your long-term goals, short-term, intermediate goals, especially with teams. I really like to talk about the steps that you're doing every day to reach that goal and what barriers are going to get in your way. That way
Mhm.
we can prepare you for those. And every mental performance coach has a different way of going about this with athletes. And the great thing about goal setting is that it's usually something you can do on your own and it's applicable for everybody, not just athletes. So, with that being said, what are your initial thoughts on goal setting, Marius, and how do you typically approach it with your athletes?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that kind of like you don't love doing it with athletes all the time. And that's something I've heard more and more as things have gone on. And I've also heard it from athletes as well. A lot of athletes I've worked with have kind of a negative relationship with goal setting, either because of previous experiences with maybe a coach who was very much with it and kind of forced it on them and would then maybe hold it against them as well. Never want that to be the case. But also maybe just maybe a misunderstanding about what it actually is and how it can be beneficial. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is long-term goals, right? Outcome goals, performance goals. What do I want to accomplish? And oftentimes when they have those in mind, they're very broad. And so,
Very blanket, odd statements. You're
yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. And I understand like where that comes from. That's just kind of what is right there, right? But to your point, there are so many things that it takes to get to that point. And I always think that, so first of all, I will always ask them, would you say like your goals are more short term or more long term? Most of the time, what I get is long term or outcome.
Mhm.
And I say I kind of what I expected, right? And that's perfectly fine. We're going to think about if this is the outcome, this is down the road, what are we doing today and the next day and the next week and everything like that until we get to that point to be able to bring ourselves closer to that ultimate or outcome goal, right?
Mhm.
And you hear things about like SMART goals, which I think have some um parts of it that are great.
I agree.
I think
Arts.
yeah, parts of it that are good. I think it becomes a little it can kind of be a little elementary, but that's perfectly fine as well too. So
It's a good place to start.
yeah, I agree 100%. Um and I've read a little bit about I don't know exactly how to say her name, pronounce her last name, but I believe it's Gabrielle Autogen. And she talks about WOOP. So WOOP.
Yes, I have heard of Whoop.
Wish, outcome, obstacle, and the P I'm blanking on, but maybe process or
Yeah, something like that.
which I think also takes probably the best elements from SMART goals and also includes the best elements as far as preparing for potential obstacles that might come up in the way and
Mhm.
how to navigate around those to be sure that they're not a barrier. But I think to your point, the most important thing is making sure that there are habits or daily actions towards the long-term goal, not only because it's making things more present and more immediate, but also because it's like essentially think about having a checklist of things you need to do. And as you knock each one off, there's always that kind of like dopamine hit of like, man, that feels good. I did something today. I did good on that. And that the more you do that, you're building confidence as you work down that checklist. And regardless of whether you hit the long term goal or not, or the outcome goal or not, seeing all the progress you've made just it can almost just completely nullify the feeling of disappointment from not making a long term goal, right?
Right. Yeah.
You've done so much great in that time, working your way towards it that you're happy, you're satisfied. You're like, "This is
Mhm.
great. I wanna do
Yeah.
some more."
I like what you do. I do a similar process. I feel like we work backwards with them.
Mhm.
Like, this is your outcome goal. I'll use I think, golf is a really good example for this. I wanna shoot a 70 today.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear that all the time from my golfers, "Or I wanna get first." But what do you need to do in order to do that? Well, I need to hit good shots. Okay, what do you need to do to hit good shots?
Right.
Okay, I need to do my pre-shot routine. I need to commit to my target. I need to trust my swing. Like, we bring it back to all those very process-focused steps, and I'm gonna go off what you said, Marius. You said it's very, like, present and immediate. And
Mhm.
athletes love present and immediate things. They wanna work.
Yeah.
They wanna see it, right, put into
Right
action.
now. Yeah.
Yes, and so it helps if we can bring them back to more of that process, like, "Okay, well, what do you need to do today and every day going forward that helps you reach that long-term goal?" And I just think that really resonates with
I agree. Yeah. I think golf is a perfect example because it can go off the rails really fast.
right,
All you're thinking about is, I want to shoot 70 today. Soon as you make a double bogey, you're just like, that's over with. And now maybe your entire round is over with, right? And so, what are the things that's going to help you get to shooting a 70? Like you said, those mental kind of steps along the way, process steps along the way that's going to help you get closer to that or accomplish that or even exceed that, right?
right. Yeah, but thinking about shooting a 70, that's not actually gonna help you hit a good shot,
No.
right? So it's like we kinda need to throw that goal out the window for the
Yeah.
meantime and replace it with those small, like, actionable process goals that will actually lead to that.
It may even make you further away from shooting a 70 on that day.
Right.
Yeah,
As backwards as it sounds, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And let's go back to the talking about the barriers and the obstacles. I like to call them roadblocks.
Mm,
And I think those are important. What I do with my athletes is if they have like a big tournament or game coming up, we like to sit down and write out, well, what are all the potential challenges that might come up for you and how do you want to respond to these? Because when they have a plan, I don't think they're as worried about it happening because they're like, okay, well, if I like miss this shot or slice it into the woods, I know exactly how I'm going to handle it and I know exactly what I'm going to do.
yeah, and it's like, not only are you relying on, do you have your kind of mental plan of like how I'm going to respond, right? But you also have all the hours and hours and hours of practice you put into that exact situation to fall back on as well. Once you can kind of create that scenario in your mind and, wrap your head around that might actually happen, you can then now tap into all the shots you've made on, the range or whatever the case is that allow you to feel confident to go out there and even have the goal of shooting a 70, right? And so I think it goes beyond just and I don't know, this isn't necessarily tied to goal setting, but it goes beyond just the preparation part of, in any sport, watching the film or preparing for the other team or whatever, or preparing for the course or whatever the case is, right? It's just how are you going to respond in the moments that are crucial, in the moments that you need to, that are going to help you kind of rebound and get on the right track and stay on the right track to whatever it is that you want to accomplish.
Mhm.
To talk about like thing versus responding, right? Reaction is just kind of a knee jerk instinct. It's what you're typically used to doing. And I think a lot of people kind of um, naturally kind of get into their routines and they kind of fly on autopilot, right? If we can prepare a plan B, a plan C, we're going out there to play a game. Plan A is everything goes great. Everything goes perfect the way we want it to go. Very few times does that actually happen. So what is plan B? And then what is plan C, right? And so if you can do that beforehand, you're going to be going in there with a leg up on everybody else for the most part, because a lot of people are just not doing that.
Right, exactly. And great athletes, I'll say good athletes have routines, but the great ones can adapt those routines when needed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right. So just
Absolutely.
talking about the plan A, plan B, plan C in place. I know what I'm doing. All good. And
And
I don't want it to sound like we're crapping on long term goals here because those are important. You need direction, right? And if there's a time and a place to think about those,
yes.
like it's 6 a.m. and you are in the middle of a very hard conditioning workout. I mean, thinking about your lunge form,
Yeah, it's not
that's
gonna
not gonna cut it. But thinking maybe like, okay, my long-term goal here, this is just getting me to that step. I mean, I think it can be so helpful in those moments, those really
Yeah.
challenging moments when you're in the middle of a hard adversity. I gotta think bigger picture, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, 100%. That's a perfect way to frame it, in the sense like long-term goals are really good for a direction, a kind of a beacon of hope, right? And in the times where things are tough, having that as kind of a reminder of, this is why I'm doing this right now. And
Mhm.
this is why I'm maybe going through this struggle. This is why because it's all going to be worth it at the end, right? And never losing sight of it. I think it can maybe be really good for motivation and encouragement, but not so good for in the moment performance and
Correct.
execution of skills, right?
Yeah. Might put more pressure on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like if
just
a high school athlete is wants to commit to a school and the college coach that they really want to impress is there watching them, they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is my one shot to make it to the school." I mean, that right, that's not helping you perform and be present in the moment.
right.
Yeah. Right. So having those small things to come back to, we're saying have your dream goal here, but work backwards.
Yeah, exactly, and it would be just like a huge disservice to say, like, don't have your long-term goal or get rid of your outcome goals because naturally it's just what we kind of
Do.
do, yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're into goal setting or not, or regardless of whether you're into, like, actually writing down your goals or not, everybody has goals for what they wanna accomplish. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter if it's something that is maybe big or how small it is or whatever the case is, everybody has goals for what they wanna accomplish, and so, naturally, it is that outcome that we want to see, but we also need to put a lot of thought into what does it take to get there?
Mhm.
Otherwise, you kinda just you're kinda holding on to a bit of a dream in the sense of, like, you're just kind of
With no plan.
hoping for it to happen, but
Yeah. Right.
not taking any action towards it.
And I think Simon Sinek said this, which I really like. He was talking about hope and how we all need hope. If there's no hope, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
But if there's hope, that's the start of your plan.
Yeah.
And I find myself asking athletes that a lot. I'm like, do you have if maybe they're going through something really challenging, I'm like, are you hopeful that you'll get through this? And if they're like, yes, I have hope, I'm like, great, that's all we need. We can
That's all we
work
need.
with a little bit of hope, but
Yeah.
we do need to
We
have
need
that.
some of it.
Yeah, yeah. So this is good. Anything else to add? Little small takeaways, good perspectives about goal setting for athletes or people in general.
I think, like we've just talked about, having the hope, having the guiding light or the beacon of hope is
Hmm.
important, and never losing sight of it is important as well. But what you don't want it to be is that you just have that vision of it happening, and maybe you relive that vision of it happening in your mind, and you let that kind of drain you from putting energy in towards actually going for it, right? It's one thing for it to be out there and for you to have like manifested it or you put it out there in the world, but you actually have to make action towards making it happen. And that requires consistency, that requires planning, that requires actionable steps, that requires a lot of focus on the details, the small things that maybe you don't always want to do. And maybe that's when you come back to having that long term goal or that outcome goal reminder, but you need to do them. And so having those kind of that balance of where's my focus at now to be able to make my way towards the long-term goal and where's my focus at to be able to remind myself of what it is that I'm doing this for. And I think when you can operate from that sense of having a little bit of balance in both, you're going to be a lot better set up for being able to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish, which we love that. We just want everybody to do that. And don't be afraid of actually like putting goals down or writing them down or saying them out loud to other people. That is
There's
a,
power behind that.
there's a lot of power behind that. That is the thing that kind of, um, is kind of the first step to making your journey towards that goal, right? You tell people about it, they hold you accountable if they are people that you know, trust or have in your close circle, whatever, your family, your friends, they hold you accountable for it. Which does a lot of good for motivation and making sure that you're staying on that path. You write it down. That's always a reminder of exactly what it is I want to accomplish, as opposed to maybe one day it's this, one day is a little bit different, one day is a little bit different. I
Hmm.
always know exactly what it is I want to accomplish because it's written down and it's there for me to see.
And putting it somewhere where you can constantly see it and
Yeah,
reminding yourself of why am I doing this every day?
exactly. Phone screen, notes in your phone,
After mirror.
mirror, exactly, mirror. Maybe you can even get like one of those apps to text yourself that every day, whatever it is, whatever it is that works for you. Not, you know, it isn't a one rule fits everybody, but whatever it is that works for you best to make sure that you're able to get the benefits from that, I think is what you should be kind of looking to try to incorporate.
Yeah. And an athlete who knows what they want, who has a plan to get what they want, that is a very dangerous force to come across.
They're
Yeah.
gonna get there. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So thank you for summarizing that up beautifully for us, Marius. I'm very excited for our athletes to listen to this because I think there are some really great takeaways that they can pull from it. So thank you again, athlete. Marius, will you please remind them where they can find you and how to
Yes.
reach you?
Our website is Marius, as MariusJ.com. I realized the first time I said it that people maybe not know how to spell Marius.
True.
So,
Great. I'll write it in the show notes for everyone. And athletes, if you are listening to this and want to know my email, Georgia@rootedsportspsychcoach.com. You can find both of our emails in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in another week.